Welcome to the Facing Our Demons podcast.
We aim to educate
and entertain
while talking all things demonology and demonolatry.
Come for the demons, stay for the dad jokes.
This podcast is not intended for children or the easily offended,
although no offense is ever intended.
So pull up a chair and join us as we spend a few minutes
facing our demons. All right, welcome back to the Facing Our Demons podcast, episode 2, the sequeling. My name is Jay Thomas. I'm your layman.
I'm BJ Hamblin. I'm the demonolator.
And we're going to get right back into it, talking all things demonology and demonolatry. Last week I said demonology twice, with slightly different inflections. You know what? I'm just going to let that roll. It's funny when people mess up.
I thought it was great. Yeah. Big fan.
But anyway, so we defined demonolatry last week. We talked about Azazel. We discussed prayer and blah, blah, blah. But right now we're going to move up to our first standard segment. Do we want to do the drum roll again? I'm going to put in the noise. But Demonolatry in the news! Very nice. Beach, hit it.
Yeah. Oh, man, Jay. Oh, we've got some good stuff here this week. So, it turns out... you remember Hobby Lobby, of course.
Of course.
Outstanding hobby organization that has absolutely no other connotations related to it whatsoever.
No, not at all. Purveyor of fine styrofoam trees.
That's right. So somehow these people got a hold of a ancient Sumerian tablet with the story of Gilgamesh chiseled into it, actually, in cuneiform. And
okay, real quick. I know the name Gilgamesh, but I'm forgetting the details.
The Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest narrative that we have access to as humanity. It's the story of a king of Uruk who meets a wild man, and then there's a flood, and Utnapishtim, and it's the first reference we have besides the Atrahasis is another one of these very ancient Sumerian narratives, but so it's the oldest narrative we have. It's the original epic.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but Gilgamesh as an entity, he was the king, you say?
He was, yeah. Pseudo-mythological king of Uruk was the name of the city, which is one of the Mesopotamian cities.
Is there an estimated current location where that would have been? Like what?
This is in Iraq.
I kind of figured, but I wasn't sure.
Yep.
Got to be honest.
Yeah, I believe this is in south-central Iraq. More specifically,
South Central
Iraq.
Word.
I'll have to look that up. But it's in Iraq today. Is the thing. Yeah. So Hobby Lobby gets a hold somehow or another. I guess they might have been putting together a giant Bible museum of ancient stuff that included like loads and loads of stolen Iraqi artifacts from the past decade or two, and. They finally returned this tablet to Iraq with like a "we're sorry for stealing your cultural artifacts on the black market" note kind of posted to the front of it. But yeah, so
okay, well that's cool. Well, how does that relate to demonolatry necessarily? I mean, it's interesting of being on a mythical scale and being a little bit outside the norm, but I'm not catching the connection.
So the Sumerian and Mesopotamian religious system would have to be the closest relative to the original people that would have been worshiping demons. That we have any kind of access to. And I say that knowing full well that we have no access to any documents whatsoever that talk about the people on the fringes of this society. These things happen over 4,000 years.
If anybody has searched for those documents or any references to them, Beej, I have no doubt it is you.
Yep, it was a whole lot of fun, man. Just wow.
Yeah, it sounds exciting.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
click, nothing.
Still very much involved in hunting out this particular subsect of Mesopotamian society.
Well, anything worth doing is worth wasting countless hours on.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. 100%. Countless hours.
Oh, awesome. Any other items in the news? Or?
Absolutely. So, a Tennessee news, right? I know everybody out there listening's from all over the different place, but Jay and I here live inside the conceivably great state of Tennessee.
Shh, they'll find me.
Shh, I know, right?
Right?
So here recently, Tennessee snuck through a bill for what's called a religious release time program. Now, this bill was pushed by a nonprofit religious foundation out of Knoxville called the Elgin Foundation, who decided that they wanted to have a Bible program in a local elementary school in Knoxville. And they get this release time program instituted. A group called the Satanic Children's Ministry of Knoxville also engages in this release time program, and all heck breaks loose. And the school board meetings for months, it is an absolute...
I don't know if you got a softball the swears, though. I mean, you know, hell's not even really one of them. I mean,
True.
He's like...
yeah, all fucking shit broke absolutely loose.
Okay, I didn't say you had to peg it to the floor. I just meant that you could probably say hell.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle.
And it's probably going to be okay.
This is true. So anyway, long story short, they have this great success getting their program into this Knoxville elementary school, and then they have to look at Satanists doing the same thing right next to them in the pickup lines, and they lose their minds.
Oh, heaven forbid.
Yep, and the arguments go back and forth, and finally the Knoxville School Board says, you know what? The 2015 law of the state of Tennessee rammed down us on these release time programs that says we may engage in them, says very specifically may, and we're just going to vote not to do this. So that's what they did, and it stopped the whole problem until they went to the Tennessee legislature and put in a definitions change on the 2015 bill that allows them, if they're voluntary, to make them mandatory whether the local school board has any kind of idea of how they want to run this program or not. So the reason all of this has popped up in the news is that the United Temple of Demonolatry is actually participating in this program. The 2020-2021 school year, we actually will be hosting a religious release time program of our own, based off of the secular humanist version that the Satanic Children's Ministry of Knoxville has developed. So it's one of those religious equality games.
You are a word salad. I love it.
Yep.
I mean, a good one with like chicken and bacon,
sprinkles on top.
Yeah, oh yeah, lots of ranch. I love it. It's good stuff. Little Thousand Island, maybe.
Oh yeah,
but so anyway, so the practical thing being, how does that affect? What exactly does that mean? I'm sorry.
Okay, as a parent, like I understand your curiosity here. What the heck is going on? These programs have been started in 1905. They're very old. The Supreme Court ruled on them in 1948 that they couldn't happen on school grounds or with school equipment or taught by school officials. So that kind of separation of church and state was passed in 1948 on these religious release time programs, and they basically disappeared out of everyone's minds. Until here recently, several evangelical Christian initiatives have been pushed on the federal level and passed, and that further broke down into state level legislation, which has been pushed and passed because even less people care about what's happening in the state than about what's happening in the federal government. So it used to be a thing where if a school system in the woods decided religious release time was for them, and they went through all the effort of figuring out how many hours a student misses a day and from which classes and how transportation back and forth will be arranged.
Oh, okay. I guess that was kind of where I was confused, was how did it affect the children? You know, was it a matter of instruction, or you said release, and I should have got it right off, but I'm tired.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so I was curious, and like I said, the word release, that has to do with time out of class.
True, time out of the school day. Absolutely correct. So the theory here is that we need to be teaching our children about Jesus and the Holy Word in public school time every day. This is important to my child. It's that kind of thinking. So the program's structured by law so that up to 1 hour of every school day of the school year, a child may be dismissed at the request of a parent or guardian to attend a religious instruction program off of school grounds, not ran with school money, And to hell with the consequences for their actual public education with this. Well, what winds up happening is the school board will desperately try to figure out how to get the child out of school during a time period that the state doesn't have a mandated test. So like no STEM courses, science, technology, math, none of this. No English. What they have to miss out on is art, physical education, and music.
Those things are still important, though. I feel like if you're going to, as a school, participate in said program, well, how hard is it to make the school day 1 hour longer to have a standard time for that for everybody, regardless of what... So you're nodding at me, so that's why I paused.
Yeah, absolutely true. Figuring out where in a school day, and you're right, I mean, each individual student has their schedule, and they show up at school, and they hit this class and that class, and there's lunch, and there's recess, and there's this
right,
class.
First period I got biology. First period you've got math. Second period I've got PE. Second period you've got chemistry. Whatever.
And that's the thing. So when you demand that a school system, like say the Lebanon Special School District, when you tell them, look, this student has to be pulled out of school for up to an hour of every day of his school year, make that work, but also by these guidelines, you're putting an extra burden on an already overburdened and underpaid system. Like, mad, unbelievable, deep, heartfelt respect to the Lebanon Special School District and all of their teachers and all of the school districts and all of the teachers in the country getting a raw deal to try to mold the future generation, to have this thrust on them. So here's the ultimate outcome, right? Either the Satanic Children's Ministry of Knoxville and the United Temple of Demonolatry start running these programs so that the only version of this that children learn and hear and see about isn't Protestant Christianity, which is this kind of false recruitment, proselytization process that's really disturbing. Either they learn about secular humanism as well, or Hinduism as well, or Buddhism as well, or Islam as well, like whatever it is, like equal opportunity. If we have to be a society in which these things are taught in the public schools to our children, then they have to have the freedom to choose whatever they want, anything they want. It has to be available, or else these are violating the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, which says the government can't give us a religion that's the one. And
right, and you can't let it come at the expense of the child's education.
Which is the other thing. So if the Temple and the Satanic Children's Ministry get in on this, and the Christian, the evangelical wing, that is pushing so hard for this for Christ, realizes, oh, we're going to have to let everyone do this, and then they back off of it, and then children can just go to public school and victory, sense and logic and reason is reign supreme. Or that doesn't happen, and at least children have an option to hear something that teaches them about equality and humanity and freedom, and isn't just locking them into a prescribed dogmatic narrative.
Right, and so I guess what I'm insofar as to not interrupt what might otherwise be a normally scheduled class for a kid, you have one specific hour for every child in the school to receive the message of their parents' choice or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And if they don't have one, you have a string of electives that you can do otherwise. So they're not just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, because some parents are not overly religious. And
so I tend to come down more on the idea that this is something that we should not have in schools. Let us separate the public and government sphere.
Okay, I see where you're at now. So instead of trying to fight what is going to be admittedly a losing battle for religious and spiritualist equality for this time, so that no child misses out on their regular curriculum or anything like that, just leave it like it has been traditionally and let the parents take care of it?
Absolutely. If you feel as a parent that it is your need to indoctrinate and cultivate a very specific dogmatic worldview in your offspring, that's something that happens in your home, that's something that happens in your family life, that is not something that comes out of reading, writing, and arithmetic for everyone equally, no matter their station.
Okay. Well, I'm getting there slowly. Like I said, I'm tired. Originally, I thought you might have been arguing more towards an equilateral hour of that in the school for everybody, but that's very, very hard to achieve. It's much easier to just go back to leave religion out of school. We know you're Christians. We know most of you are Christian, blah, blah, blah. You're going to win these arguments for decades to come. Eventually, I hope humanity will do better. Mm-hmm.
So that's why organizations like the Satanic Children's Ministry and the Satanic Ministry in Knoxville and the United Temple of Demonology need to be out there and talking about this and engaging in this and demanding equality, not just for us, but for everyone. And the more that equality gets around and everybody wraps their minds around it, the more I'm sure we can all agree this is something that is best done in the home. But if it's something that legally doesn't wind up going that way, it's something that's going to happen in the schools in a better way than it was originally intended.
Well, and I'm sorry, anybody who is requesting equality, who is not fighting for the equality of others who are also not getting it, can kiss my dick. I'm sorry. I was like,
it doesn't seem hard to find yourself in this worldview. And I know we're not just trying to create a giant echo chamber here, but I mean, as people of thinking, considered, I don't even know if we could call our views progressive, but certainly not.
If anything, the way I understand it, with my layman blah blah blah, but based on what we've talked about, this isn't progressive. This is pre the current norm.
Yeah,
we're talking about a return to form, not a reform.
The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment is not new. If you want to argue from a purely American legal perspective, this is something...
Well, let me grow my mullet here. I'm from the South. I can make that joke. Don't at me. I had a mullet growing up.
Billy Ray J. Tom.
That's right. Bangs to the eyebrows, back of the hair fell into the shirt. By God, I tell you what.
I had a mullet.
Proper 80s. Give me a T-top Camaro that barely runs.
We're talking Garth Brooks, George Strait, Billy Ray Cyrus.
If I wore hats, you could put a fish hook on the bill. But even I'm not that redneck. Clink. All right, so that's the news. That's from Did you ever watch You Can't Do That on Television?
No.
On
Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, yeah.
Don't say I don't know, because... then you get a bucket of shit slopped on your head. But anyway, so we're moving on. And I think at first I had called this daily practice, but you decided it would be better called foundational studies.
Yes.
Hit me!
Foundational studies. So, necromancy.
Sweet, I like it.
Lightning strikes.
Yeah, well, I'll throw something in there if it makes you happy.
Oh, get your gaff on. But, so necromancy, right? This is oddly foundational to demonology. Yeah. No joke.
You're not seeing the weird blank look I'm giving Beach as he tries to reassure me that this is something we should talk about. Let's just say I've got one eyebrow raised and a doubtful look about my countenance.
Yep, so spooling straight into the D&D of reality here, necromancy is a magical practice involving communication with the dead. It's a compound of the ancient Greek nekros, meaning dead body, and manteia, meaning divination by means of. So it's divination by means of a dead body. Is necromancy in its fullest, most original ancient Greek context.
Okay.
Yeah, because I failed on a lot of the linguistics in episode 1, I decided to do a little background.
It's a growing process, and but good on you. That's a +1.
See.
I didn't have to ask.
No,
I didn't have you could have just said necromancy, and I wouldn't have had to ask. Even I've played Diablo for fuck's sake. You don't think I've raised a bone minion in my time? You don't think I've raised a bone or two in my time?
It's well said.
So. I'm just saying. In a virtual sense, I have raised the dead to raise and fucking ruin on my enemies.
Using Diablo there, then to continue the conversation, you know the shaman class that they have in
Do you want me to show you my bone spear?
All right, so shamanism is actually the original place from which the ancient Greeks would have developed necromancy itself. As the shamans would call upon the spirits of the ghosts of their ancestors. The old Greek necromancers would address the dead in a mixture of high-pitched squeaking and low droning tones, which kind of emulated the trance state that shamans will seek to get into.
So how many dead sea creatures have the dolphins and whales raised then?
You know, you did hit the highs and lows there. That's exactly right.
And aquatically speaking,
what's it?
Boom.
Metalocalypse, they have that whole like go into the water thing going on, and that would kind of be like, you know, the whales and the dolphins there. Yeah, so like there's a heavy metal aspect to what you're speaking. Absolutely, that's necromancy.
Well, and if you take the great amalgamation of the two, we call that a killer whale.
Yep. No, the killer whale on the
I will produce the corpse and repurpose it. Hi, my name is William. They call me Willie. I was once in captivity, but then I was free. At least 3 times, if I remember that sequel count
they
right.
might have done 7 of those.
I really liked the first one, but I was age appropriate. The second one was okay. Yeah. I know there was a third. If they did another one, I don't know how hard you could milk a killer whale. I wouldn't want to try.
It'd be towards the edge. Yeah, it'd be.
But they are technically mammalians,
quite a press there. Now, not to get incredibly off subject, but making papyrus is actually the same. You got to press the shit out of these fibers, and then you've got to wick off the moisture and do this for weeks.
Well, you say you don't know how blah blah it is, but I just talked about milking a killer whale, and you're talking about pressing wood
into paper, nonetheless.
Into paper.
Yeah. That's cool.
Okay, so now that we have gone way off topic for a few minutes.
So, all right, how does necromancy connect with demonolatry? I'm sure our astute audience would like to know.
I don't have as near a problem with trying to make that connection, but then again,
okay.
I'm going straight Hollywood though.
All right, what you got?
Well, at that point, it's like, communion with the dead. That's going to involve spirits, entities, whatever. And what are demons if not spirits of another nature, regardless of how more or less powerful they may be in one sense or another? I believe they would exist on the same plane.
Damn, that's beautiful, Jay. Oh, man. So
score 1 for the Gippa, or win 1 for the Gippa. If anything, just write on your chalkboard J1.
J1.
And I don't mean WON. Just give me 1 hash mark. That's all I want.
Click that on there.
When I get to 5, make it horizontal across the 4 or diagonal. That's what I wanted.
So I hate to repeat you so almost exactly directly, but this is exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, feed my ego.
All right. So in the ancient world, necromancy was considered communing with the spirits. There were spirits, as the ancient Greeks would put it, Daemons.
That's another hash mark for Jay.
No. In between the actual physical world that we here inhabit and the other world that the spirits would inhabit.
That would be the plane thing I was talking about. That's 3 I'm at.
No, killing it. So the thing is, when Abraham developed into Jesus and Christianity became a thing, and then the late 300 Common Era conversion of Christianity to the Roman Empire,
which took about 4 score.
And wrong
Abraham?
Centuries ago. No. So when the Christian mindset overtook this, it was their point of view that when you mention things like in the Old Testament, when ghosts were summoned to give advice to kings of the nation of Israel. This happens at one point with, I'm going to forget her name, the Witch of Endor. I'm not going to forget her name because it's a Star Wars
you were about
reference.
To let me down super hard. You don't forget shit.
Yep. No, Endor, where the Ewoks come from. So
actually, they do not come from Endor.
They don't?
They come from the forest moon of Endor.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, nerd slap.
Oh, man.
Nerd
What's the name of that rock?
I don't know. It's the forest moon of Endor.
All right, fair enough.
I think it's actually, and And it may just be because I misheard forest at one point when I was a kid, but I thought it was the fourth moon of Endor. The point being, it is not Endor itself.
Yeah.
There is a lunar component.
Exactly. So, to wound back to the Tanakh and the Old Testament, the Witch of Endor produces the ghost of a king of Israel for yet another king of Israel to be like, hey, why is this not going well? And the answer that he receives from this shade in this cave with this old woman is something to the effect of, what the hell are you doing, Smalls?
So wait, is this old woman giving him shade?
No, the old woman summons the shade, and then the shade...
He's like, I need some answers, and she's like, fuck you, I got nothing for you.
No, she's like, okay, cool, well, here you go, and then there's the fucking summon.
I'm not gonna lie, last time I heard that sound effect, the context was way different.
So the Witch of Endor produces the spirit of an old king of Israel to talk to another king of Israel, and the guy's like, oh man, thank God you're here, I really need your advice on X, Y, and Z, and the guy, the shade that summoned, goes, dude, no, absolutely not. This is not the way we should be practicing things. This is not the magic you should be engaged in. No. You are cursed for this. Why? Why did you do this? So the Christians look at this story in the Old Testament and they go to themselves, aha, I see what's going on here. What's happened is this old demonolotrix right here has summoned...
I still like that word.
I know, right? Has summoned a demon that is impersonating the shade of this king of Israel and is therefore letting curses loose, all of this madness. So there was a direct connection that was drawn in Christian theology between the spirits of the dead and their presence in our reality and the existence of actual demons that are impersonating what we presume are these spirits through necromantic communication.
I gotta say, just as an aside, it's too bad this is an audio-only platform because B just hand motions while he's talking. He's drawing maps on this table.
Oh man, what's that guy from that famous show that's got all the string pinned to the wall and he's got
I don't know who is that guy from that show.
Oh no, I'm gonna get the show wrong.
Could you be a little more vague? I can't get. You're being too specific, and
But it's that common conspiracy theory meme where there's the guy with the crazy look on his face and all of this.
There is that movie called Conspiracy Theory. Is that possibly what you're referencing with Mel Gibson?
I'm just trying to get the hand gestures across to the audience if they've seen.
I like to get a hand gesture across myself, but I do it in private. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to edit that. Fuck it.
So, yeah, we get in the modern parlance that necromancy is this type of ancient esoteric magic that brings a corpse out of the ground to do your evil bidding. And that's largely an Abrahamically influenced idea.
Well, accurate or not, I mean, the idea would, it would be bitching.
It would be. So I've actually engaged in some specifically necromantic magic in my day.
Ooh.
Yeah, no joke.
By the way, if any of you listeners out there have any viewpoints on anything we're talking about, necromancy or otherwise, but if you have any other experiences, please hit us up at Facing Our Demons, that's with an A, at gmail.com. Hit us on our Twitter, that's at FODPod. We want to hear these things, and hey, you pique our interest, we might mention you on the air. So make sure you tell us how you want to be addressed. We don't want to put on anybody's name if they don't want it, but we want to give you credit for your shit in whatever way you want. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Beach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The necromantic magic. In my case, I undertook this because my great-grandfather lived to a very old age and then committed suicide. He was known as an ornery man by absolutely everyone I have ever talked to about him. I knew him a little bit when I was little, but I think he died when I was 7 years old, something like that.
Notice the only Southern man who pronounces ornery.
Ornery.
As opposed to ornery.
Ornery. Yep, no, absolutely, yep. I'm a strange one. So...
No.
Yeah.
I've known you for 25 years. I never thought for a second you might be a little different from the average bear, as it were.
So the story I received when I was little, and my family history will keep popping up in this, I'm sure, because there's a lot of fun things that we can spool on. But my great-grandfather, Horace, decided that he was done with the world after he received notification that he had a type of cancer. They would have to go and see the doctors about an awful lot, and there would be suffering, and it would be bad. So he received.
Well, in that I was about to say, in that respect, I give respect, but in that case,
yeah, that's a euthanasia one.
But I can have respect for somebody going out on their own terms.
Oh yeah,
that's like when you're a cat and you're dying, and you go off into the woods. You're like, I'm sorry, I just can't even anymore.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking, but it
is. But you know, why artificially lengthen something if that's not what you want?
That's right.
Now,
you can fight and rail against reality, or you can realize the tide, and in some instances that is more beautiful than getting drugged to the bitter end.
Right, and that's going to be case specific, you know. But it comes down to kind of what is your quality of life going to be? If all you've got to look forward to...
He heard this, and he decided that wasn't the fight that he had signed up for. Over 92 years of effort and countless children and lots of effort and disaster.
Shit, even hitting 92, even if you're not having a bad day, it's like, what the fuck do you do at that point?
Homeboy raised children through the Great Depression. I'll give him a break in the mid-90s when he decided he was done.
I might be wrong, pardon the segue, but apparently the recent unemployment rates and then the blah, blah, blah and everything that's going has actually exceeded, on a percentage-wise way of thinking, the original Great Depression.
That is absolutely true. And in 2008, when we had the big housing recession, it came close to it. But the COVID-19 and the state of the economy, the stock market does really well, the people don't, and in the middle you get disaster. So yeah, he just decided he was done, and he went home and offed himself with a gun. Right, so it was traumatic and sudden, but everybody kind of understood it, and it wasn't a huge mystery to the adults at the time. But me being 7 years old, I didn't quite understand.
Well,
I wound up dragging a lot of Protestant-inspired questions with me through puberty about whether or not Pa was able to see what I was doing at any given moment in time, and what I remembered of Pa as a 7-year-old, what his reactions might theoretically have been. Were I able to...
Well, at least you weren't 12 or 13, because that would have made it really hard to...
So, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is a pubescent child getting into masturbation and everything. It was really awkward for me to think that I had the spirit of my great-grandfather sitting up on a cloud looking down on me going, God, man,
well,
the fuck?
You're not unique in that, though. No, seriously, as agnostic as I may be or whatever, I do accept the possibility that maybe you do maintain a singular... whatever, blah blah blah. What would you do with your time? But watch the living, And I'm like, my poor grandparents. My mother's side were fairly religious. My father's side not so much. But I've lost both my grandfathers and one of my grandmothers. And I guess all I have to come down to is like, look, I got to do this to get my juices flowing. And at the end of the day, you know what? You did it too. You fucking know you did it. You can preach and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, this is a natural thing.
Yep.
I am lonely.
Was that sundown trip to the outhouse after that hard day in the
sundown
field?
My ass while my coffee is cooling in the morning.
Oh, no, I'm talking about like our forebears here,
Oh, well, I don't know when they beat it, but that's
I imagine it was that sundown trip to the outhouse.
See, I'm a morning guy.
I guess this doesn't really require figuring out at the
But it's part of the waking up process for me. There's that first cigarette and then the pee, and then there's the make the coffee, and then while the coffee is cooling enough to actually drink it, there's the youporn.com.
Yep.
Okay, so to bring it back to where we were, as scary as where we were was, we're just going to keep rolling with it. And as I recall, we were on the subject of you being nervous about your great-grandfather watching down from on high as you flogged the dolphin.
So here we are, necromancy, right?
Raising the bone. Yeah, I just want to stop flogging the dolphin. What do you want?
As part of healing from my Abrahamic upbringing and ideas of a winged great-grandfather staring disapprovingly down at me from the clouds.
Oh, he's even got the wings.
Well, I mean, that's part of it, right? So,
why do you need them up there anyway?
You really don't. The necromantic ritual that I undertook was one basically just to relieve whatever stress he had over the decision to end his own life at the point he did. And I'm sure that my messing with his spirit could be considered some kind of act of, against his consent or outside of his spiritual realm. But I wanted to feel myself like he had had some rest.
There's a feel myself joke right there that you didn't give me a pause to interject, but I'm just pointing out to the audience that I did not overlook it.
He's a good man.
I don't want them to think that I am not doing my part. Sorry.
Due diligence, yeah. So I basically undertook this ritual because everyone I had ever talked to in the family about him said that he was really angry and generally unhappy and agitatable at all points. And I imagine the shit he went through raising a family and the depression. I don't want to judge the man outside of time and whatnot, but the idea of him having some kind of relief from the tensions built up in life is why I undertook the ritual.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I mean, obviously, it's impossible, like they say, until you've walked a mile in his shoes, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, regardless of whatever he did or didn't like about his life as a whole, he manned up and did his thing and lived to be 92 years old. And as far as I'm concerned, if you get to be 92 years old and you're like, you know what, I've had it, okay.
Respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. But euthanasia aside, necromancy and its connection with demons is basically just...
I don't know what Chinese toddlers have to do with anything. the euthanasia, you see.
The euthanasia,
it's funny
I see, yeah.
That's nice. Captain Dad joke. All right, I'm sorry.
We got to fit him in there. It's part of the.
That is my superhero alter ego. To anybody who is not familiar, don't tell anyone because I don't want anti-Captain Dad joke people threatening my loved ones. Just know that it's there, and you listeners are privy to that information.
Absolutely. So, sum it all up here right at the end of the segment. Necromancy is related to demonolatry because Christianity decided that summoning the dead was talking to demons, and here we sit.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
Oh no, because in order to Jesus to have risen, that's special magic, and that special magic isn't something the common folk can do. So there's no getting back someone from the grave. There's just not.
So you're not talking to your dead loved ones. You're talking to demons who are maybe trying to convince you.
Impersonating, perhaps.
Yeah.
To lead you astray, being the common Abrahamic line of thought.
Yeah. I wonder if a necromancer ever tried to talk to their dead family member who was Elvis. And so now there's this demon having to come back with a sneer. Oh. And who is basically an Elvis impersonator.
There we go. A
demonic Elvis impersonator.
There's a movie somewhere.
Working in Vegas.
Yep.
Lord Almighty, I feel my temperature rising.
Oh, that's right. Blue suede shoes. Oh,
no. We got to go with Burning Love if we're talking about demons here.
Burning Love.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, so let's get back on track. It is time for Demon of the Week. Hit it, Beach.
Aha! We got Baal this week, Jay. We're reaching back to Canaan, right before the Hebrew religion actually solidified. So Baal is known in modern Arabic in a bunch of different ways. It's so foundational was the thought in this corner of the world. He's referred to by the name for husband in modern Hebrew and Arabic, and Bahalu is referred to as wife in modern Arabic. So you get a real, very deep and wide penetration of the language out of the name of this god.
Insert appropriate deep and wide penetration joke here.
I know, right? So Baal was the weather god in ancient Canaan, and Canaan being Israel and Lebanon and that general area of the eastern Mediterranean border is more dependent upon rainfall for its agriculture than, say, Mesopotamia or Egypt was with the Nile or the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which is what drove most of their actual agriculture. So the god of weather would have become a lot more important to the early Hebrews. You see this in the Old Testament where priests of Baal would actually get in contests with priests of Yahweh, or El, or the Hebrew God in general, to see whose magic was better. Who could light an offering on an altar on fire just through the power of their spoken incantations alone. So, Baal, right? Demon worthy. When he was kicked out of the pantheon, Moses, the Sinai, cannabis, the good times, tablets of stone that said, "Do not do these things." Baal was foremost on that because El and his wife Asherah were the father and mother of Baal, the most important god in Canaanite religion.
Cool.
Good.
I avoided all the ball jokes. I mean, even though I had a pair of them ready to go. Sorry. Okay.
Effortless.
Well, you know, everybody's good at something.
Who doesn't mind a ball joke?
Those people are dicks. Okay.
More interestingly, coming into the modern Goetia, you wind up with various Christian interpretations of this old spirit. So you get figures like Beelzebub, which is based off a specific incarnation of Baal from the olden times.
Isn't he Lord of the Flies?
Zaphon. Right, so Beelzebub in the Goetia and in modern parlance is associated with flies being a sign of his arrival. You get a lot of this in exorcism movies with Catholic priests, which there's a few really good ones.
For such instance, The Exorcist.
Not bad. It plays all over the thing. You know, there's actually a modern organization in the Catholic Church, the International Association of Exorcists. No joke, they are the backbone of the Roman Catholic Church's spiritual warfare brigade.
What was the movie I watched? I think you turned me on to it, where the kid went to school and he was gonna quit, but they were like, "No, then you got to pay back your loans," and so then he goes and he apprentices under this priest exorcist dude.
Oh man, yeah.
What was that called?
I did recommend that movie, and I can't remember it for the life of me, but it is referencing one of the men who is the founders of the modern International Association of Exorcists, which has been the last two popes, have really taken this seriously and created a space in the Catholic Church for this to happen. Now, before they turn one of their people over to the exorcist wing of the Roman Catholic Church, to their extreme credit, they do a thorough background check and they figure out if this person has mental health problems. They weigh that very deeply against what they understand of demonic possession in their religion. And 95% of every case that comes to the Roman Catholic Church is actually referred to a mental health professional instead of a legit exorcist.
I think I watched a documentary on the actual guy, at some point. Mm-hmm. And so that seems to track.
So Beelzebub comes up over and over again. It's referenced in the New Testament. We know that he's connected to flies, something that's referenced in the Goetia from the medieval times as well. But all of this is a further incarnation of what we can consider the ancient spirit of Canaanite, Phoenician, and Mesopotamian Baal to be. When a portion of the early Hebrew religion, our Canaanites, invaded northeastern Egypt and took over the Nile Delta for a few hundred years. The Hyksos is what the Egyptians called them. They said that means foreigners in the ancient Egyptian. So the Hyksos worshipped Baal when they came to this part of Egypt. And then as they adapted to the Egyptian culture of the eastern Nile Delta, they changed their worship from Baal to Seth, which is an Egyptian deity who represents chaos and the desert and storms. So they saw this Egyptian deity and were like, man, that is our guy. That's what we're on about. So even all the way till today, you'll catch people looking at translations of the Old Testament and finding little bits and pieces of this in Protestant Christianity and establishing elaborate, more or less conspiracy theories relating to Satan and Seth and Set and Jesus Christ. So there's a whole range of really interesting things to think about in relation to Baal, who we can basically look at from demonolatry being the worship of spirits that have been condemned by Abraham, as Baal is the spirit in charge of storms and lightning and rain and fertility and agriculture, warfare. He covers a lot of ground, but he was also more than once considered at the very top of the Canaanite pantheon. He often warred with his father El, or later known to the Hebrews as Yahweh, for the absolute top position in that society. And when you look at the Phoenician society of, say, Carthage, that famously went to war with Rome, Hannibal over the Alps with elephants, this was all Canaanites still involved in world history several hundred years later into the classical antiquity where the Trojan War happened and all that. So Baal keeps popping up over and over and over again.
All right. Well, now that we've gone balls deep, okay, that's the last one I'm gonna do.
Fertility god, totally cool.
Awesome. Anything else to add on that note? Hell, I don't know. Would you call on Baal in your everyday, or just rain? Or?
Baal is one of my patron deities. Baal Hadad specifically is the storm god aspect of Baal, and it's not so much like Hindu incarnations, the various names where you'll get Baal Zephon or Baal Hadad or Baal Hermon or Baal
Baal Hermon. I remember Baal Hermon.
And Baal Hermon, yeah. So Baal Hermon translates directly to Lord of Mount Hermon, which is a specific mountain on the border between modern Israel and Palestine.
Yeah. Well, we covered that.
Yeah. So Baal Zephor or Baal Zephon is related to another lord of this particular place, kind of
I said
incarnation
I was done,
of Baal.
but balls of fun.
Baal Zephor.
You said balls of fun.
Yeah, so that's where the medieval people figured out Beelzebub, and the earlier ancient people. These are mistranslations going back and forth from Hebrew to Greek. So when you get Beelzebub, you're talking about Baal Zephor, which is a specific incarnation of Baal himself, going way back. We're talking 4,000 or 5,000 years ago in the Middle East here. But Baal Peor has a story with him associated from the Old Testament. He was the Baal of coprophilia, right? So what you did?
Define coprophilia.
It's coprophilia is a fetish relating to human feces. You would go to this, and according to the Old Testament... I don't know how much deeper
we need to go on that. That I just wanted a definition. I don't need the examples.
Okay. People can look it up. It's fun stuff.
Look it up, yeah. It's a poo fetish.
And, well, yeah, kind of, sort of. It's just how you worshipped Baal Peor. It's what you did.
With a Cleveland steamer.
Yep, right on the old altar. No joke.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so that wraps that up. That was Demon of the Week and a little bit of we're just going to call that bonus content.
Yeah.
Otherwise referred to as extra shit. Sorry, couldn't help the joke.
You got it in there.
But, all right. Well, I think that about does it for this episode, Beej. What do you think?
Absolutely. Just real quick, what the Hebrews think of these spirits is not actually what all of us think about these spirits, so... Let's take all of that with a grain of salt, Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, if that's going to do it, until next time, remember...